In this video, I'm going to say something that I think is going to deeply unsettle some people watching, so I'm sorry for that. But your life may have already been emotionally planned out for you by the narcissist long before you realized what was actually happening. And before I start, I need to make something crystal clear. I am obviously not a narcissist, but for this video, I'm going to speak as if I was one, because I think hearing the mindset directly, coldly, and without filters is sometimes what finally wakes people up emotionally. And yes, this can absolutely happen the other way round. There are narcissistic wives, narcissistic girlfriends, and narcissistic mothers. But because around 80% of you watching are female, I'm going to explain this through the more common dynamic of a narcissistic husband controlling his wife. Also, I don't want to put on a girl's voice. Some of this might feel uncomfortable, but also very accurate, because the scariest narcissists are not always the loudest ones. A lot of them are strategic, they're patient, and psychologically calculating. Now, prepare for this. If I was a narcissist, I would not see relationships the same way that you do. You would be looking for connection. I would simply be looking for access. I would be looking for access to attention, access to loyalty, emotional safety, admiration, control, and the finances. And if I was a narcissist, the very first thing I would do is choose my target very, very, very carefully. I would not choose the coldest woman in the room. No, I would choose the warmest one. I would be searching, I would be on the hunt for the empathetic one, the forgiving one, the nurturing one, the woman who sees the good in people, the woman who stays and tries harder when relationships get difficult. Because those women are easier emotionally to shape over time. And this is the part people struggle to understand. If I was a narcissist, I wouldn't just start controlling her immediately. Oh no. That would probably scare her away. No, I wouldn't do that at all. First, I would become everything she has ever wanted emotionally. I'd learn everything about her. I would study her down to a T, study what she lacked growing up, study what makes her feel safe, study what makes her feel chosen, study her insecurities and study her fears, study the parts of herself she secretly feels unworthy about, and then I would temporarily become the cure to all of them. Because if I can make her emotionally addicted to how I make her feel, she will ignore things later she would normally run from. That's why narcissistic relationships often feel magic at the start. They don't feel healthy, but they often feel very magical. And let me explain the large difference between that. Because healthy love will feel very, very safe, whereas narcissistic love often feels super intoxicating at first, like somebody finally gets you and understands you completely. And if I was a narcissist, that would be 100% intentional. I would message you constantly. I would future fake plans for my future with you. I would talk about soulmates, talk about forever, talk about how different you are as a person to everyone I've ever met, because what I'm really doing is building emotional dependency early on. I'm making myself psychologically unforgettable before I ever become difficult towards you. And once you emotionally attach deeply enough, that's when the real conditioning will start to begin. If I were a narcissist, I would not destroy your confidence overnight. Oh no, I would slowly interrupt your relationship with yourself. So what I would do is I would throw in tiny little comments, things that I would disguise as jokes, tiny criticisms, tiny moments of emotional withdrawal, just enough to destabilize you internally without fully pushing you away. Maybe I joke about you being too emotional. Maybe I compare you subtly to other women. Maybe I flirt publicly and then act like you're insecure for even noticing. Maybe I become colder after intimacy. Maybe I pull away right after you feel closest to me emotionally. Because confusion will start to slowly create obsession, and obsessed people stop focusing on themselves and they start focusing on regaining the emotional safety. That is where the control starts becoming invisible, because from the outside, the relationship will still look very, very normal. All the dynamics will appear totally normal. Meanwhile, inside, in her nervous system, she's becoming hyper-vigilant. She's monitoring my tone, my moods, my energy, my reactions to things that are going on. She starts to think carefully before speaking, starts over-explaining herself in different situations, starts to avoid conflict at all cost. And you might think, why? And that's the scary part. She probably still thinks she's the problem. That is how narcissistic conditioning works psychologically. And if I were a narcissist, I would slowly become the center of her emotional world. And I'm not just talking through love. No, that's too simple. Through dependency. So maybe she sees friends less. I would force her to disconnect with them. Maybe family start causing problems. Maybe slowly isolating herself, because keeping me emotionally stable takes all of her energy. And that's where people start disappearing emotionally without even realizing it. Because narcissistic control, it doesn't look like someone's put a chain on you. It doesn't look like they're dragging you back. It looks like adaptation. The victim slowly starts adapting themselves smaller, making them smaller and smaller to survive the relationship and just make things more peaceful. Now, if I was a narcissist, one thing I would be very careful with is independence, because independent people can leave. Confident people, they can also leave. People who trust themselves are much harder to manipulate. So over time, I would slowly disconnect her from all of her instincts. Every time she questions me, I make her feel irrelevant. Every time she expresses pain, I make her feel dramatic. Every time she catches me doing something wrong, I redirect the conversation onto her reaction instead. That way she becomes more focused on regulating herself than questioning me. And after enough years of this, she no longer trusts her own reality fully. Now here's where things start getting a little darker. And by the way, I hate doing this, but I wanted to do this just to sort of get the point across. Because if I were a narcissist, I would not just build emotional dependency, I would build practical dependency too. She'd probably stop working. Maybe she becomes financially reliant on me. Maybe she has children with me. Maybe she sacrifices all of her career opportunities to support my life. And I would encourage all of this while secretly losing respect for her increasing dependency at the same time. This is one of the cruelest parts, and narcissists will never admit. They often create the dependency, then resent the person for becoming dependent. And once somebody is emotionally attached, financially dependent, and psychologically exhausted, leaving starts to feel impossible. Not because the victim does not want the freedom, but because freedom now feels terrifying to them. And that's why people stay longer than outsiders will ever understand. They're not staying because they're stupid or they don't see it clearly. They're staying because their nervous system has been conditioned slowly over years and years. And just quickly, by the way, if you're new here, my name is Brandon. I have over 1 million people follow my daily insights across all social media platforms. And if you find this video helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a like. Let me know what you found helpful in the comments, as I'll reply to all of them, and consider subscribing because I make new videos every week. Now, here's the really disturbing part. If I were a narcissist, I would already have backup plans in place in case she ever emotionally woke up. Because narcissists survive through one thing, and that one thing is control. And control always requires a contingency plan. So maybe I slowly damage her confidence over years and years and years. Maybe I make her feel too emotional, too unstable, too difficult, too dependent and hard to be loved. That way, if she ever tries to leave, she still carries my voice inside her head, questioning herself constantly. And if she does try leaving after all of that again, that's when most narcissists become their most manipulative. Not because they suddenly love deeply, but because the control is slipping away. And people confuse those two things all the time. If I feel her emotional detachment from me in any way, I suddenly become the man she always begged for. Oh yes, I'm going to love bomb her all over again. More affectionate, more emotional, more attentive, more vulnerable, gifts. And she thinks, there he is. That's the person I fell in love with all that time ago. But what she does not realize is I'm not fighting for the relationship. No, I'm not. I'm fighting for control over the relationship. And once I feel emotionally safe again, I'll just repeat the cycle. And I'll just keep doing the same thing again and again and again. That is why so many victims feel traumatized instead of heartbroken, because the relationship trained their nervous system into like an addiction cycle. Reward, withdrawal. Reward, confusion. Hope, pain. Relief, fear. Over and over again. I'll just keep repeating that cycle. And eventually, the victim becomes attached to tiny moments of emotional warmth because emotional safety becomes so rare. Now listen carefully to this next part. If I were a narcissist, one of the biggest fears would not actually be losing her physically. That wouldn't be it at all. It would be losing psychological access to her emotionally. That's what's actually important to me, because narcissists want to stay emotionally alive inside of other people. That's why some continue manipulating after separation. They manipulate in many different ways once control slips. Through money, guilt, legal battles, using children like pawns, smear campaigns, random messages, sudden vulnerability, that text, I miss you. It's all about maintaining emotional access. And the saddest part about all of this is many victims still think if they really understood how much they hurt me, maybe they would finally stop. But if I were a narcissist, your pain would often only matter once it's disrupted my comfort. That's the painful truth many survivors eventually realize. And I think one of the hardest moments for victims is recognizing the relationship was never, or very rarely, ever built around mutual love. It was all built around emotional supply. What can she give me? What does she make me feel? How much control do I have? How emotionally attached is she to me? How much of her identity revolves around me now? That's the real system underneath it all. And the reason I wanted to make this video is because some of you are still blaming yourself for what happened to you. You're still wondering why, even if it was just for a moment that you lost yourself, why you became anxious, why you became exhausted, why you became emotionally obsessed with fixing things, why you stopped recognizing yourself. Because deep down, you still think this was a normal relationship that simply became unhealthy. But many narcissistic relationships are psychologically engineered slowly over time. And once people fully understand that, the shame that they're feeling that they absolutely shouldn't starts lifting, because they stop seeing themselves as weak or broken and start understanding how deeply they were emotionally conditioned while trying to love somebody genuinely. And I think one of the most powerful moments in any of this healing journey is when the victim stops asking, how do I get the old version of them back? And starts asking, why did I have to slowly disappear emotionally just to keep this relationship functioning? That question changes everything, because healthy love does not require self-abandonment. Remember this, and remember this clearly. Healthy love does not require emotional survival strategies. Healthy love does not slowly disconnect you from who you actually are. And a message to some of you watching this: you were never hard to love. You were just trying to emotionally survive inside a relationship designed around somebody else's need for control. And if this video was helpful, I'm going to put another one on the screen right now that I think you'll also enjoy. Until next time, take care.